Welcome to Real Life and Archetypes. My name is Marina. Today I'm going to talk about conflict, why we are drawn to it, and the secret meaning behind it. There's a lot more to this than you may realize. So you just saw a clip from Gladiator, and this is an extended version, so you might find some clips in this video that are not in the original movie. And here the protagonist, Maximus, is confronting the audience in the arena with a question. Are you not entertained? And what he's doing is that he's highlighting just how sordid it is for that spectacle to be cheered on. There's a quote that says, "What you seek is seeking you." It speaks to a mysterious connection between the seeker and what is sought. So what if what we're seeking is conflict? What does that mean? There's always an inspiration behind the videos that I make. There's something that triggers some ideas. I watch a trial every year. It's something that I love to do. It's like a meditation for me. And recently I watched a very high-profile trial. A lot of us were very emotionally invested in this trial because it was a case of enormous injustice, corruption, and courage on the part of the defendant who was being framed. But what caught my attention wasn't just the trial, it was what was happening around it. I was watching the people that I was connected to on social media constantly engaging with trolls, giving oxygen to those who have nothing to say, nothing to contribute. And now that the trial is over, that pattern still continues. People feel empty, and they say so in their posts. They feel a void. And so they keep chasing the drama, the conflict. But why? There's something in us that wants conflict, that needs it. And the Romans understood this very well. Give the people bread and circus, feed them and entertain them, distract them. They threw red meat into the arena, and the audience cheered on for the tigers to go wild. As you can see in the images, look at that, everybody's cheering on. Gut him, kill him, they're just after blood. But the tigers, that's us as well, as you can see on the screen. We are feeding on this. So much so that even the advertisement for the games in Gladiator goes straight to the point. Violence. That's what you're after, that's what we're giving you. And that says a lot. So after the trial, as I was watching everyone sinking their teeth into more drama, I was reminded of a comic book that I loved as a child. I was born and raised in France, and there's a comic book series that is very popular there. It's about a small village that the Romans are unable to conquer. And the main characters are Asterix and Obelix, and also a magic potion that gives the villagers superhero strength. I've come to realize throughout my life how much these books were filled with incredible wisdom that I had absorbed as a child. They turned out to be quite an education for me. There's this particular book that came to mind. In English, it's called Asterix and the Roman Agent. But in the original French comic, it's called La Zizanie. I love the sound of that word. It's kind of unique. La Zizanie means discord, strife. And this book is a story about how easily we can be broken by manipulation. And that relates to the mind. The mind is a primary force. It connects us to what's going on in our world, whether it's places, events, news, or people talking. The mind is supposed to connect us to our reality so that we can find out what we need to know and navigate life, navigate our environment, and integrate into our environment. But the fact is, we're often distracted from that because we don't fully understand what that means. And as we go through the motions of life, we don't realize how our thoughts and our attention are being hijacked. We fail to see that the mind is feeding the lower self. It's the part of us that succumbs to meaningless stimulation, to distraction, to outrage. It's a part of us that becomes trapped in negativity and conflict. The lower self really is consumed by negative emotions, temptations, obsessions, jealousy, all of those things. It also loves and hates power. There's an attraction, rejection of power, and desires what it lacks and hates the enemy that has. So this is really about how we are intensely triggered by what others have. And so we are going to create an enemy because of that. This is a beautiful quote by Sam Keen, that the enemy is constructed from denied aspects of the self. This is a very deep subject about shadow transformation. I'm not going to go into this here, and I've made videos about that. But this is really what is happening here. This is the root of the conflict. And when we get consumed by negativity, we end up being trapped by it, and also by desires that control us. We get snakes in the head. I've also made a video about Medusa that you can check out, because this is a very, very fascinating story. So the mind is supposed to reveal the lower self that we're feeding, right? So that we can connect to the higher self. That higher self is the one that seeks higher fulfillment. That's where the duality and the concept of the two faces of Gemini come from. That's the mind archetype in the zodiac, and I made a video about that recently, and you might want to check it out. But a lot of people misunderstand the mind becomes a battlefield for the awakening of the higher self. And it all starts with the hero.
Fate whispers to the warrior, "A storm is coming." And the warrior whispers back, "I am the storm."
The hero is our driving force and the one that carries a primary conflict. Now, these are the questions that the hero should ask. Am I driven by what I truly love? This is really about motivation. Are we really motivated? We usually are pursuing what the world has defined for us. And so we need to check really what kind of person we are becoming and what kind of person we really want to be. The inner battle of the hero is between who we are as defined by the world and who we could be if only we had agency over our lives. The hero lives between two worlds, the ordinary world and the special world. One represents a life of inertia, of reaction, and of conflict. And the other one represents a life of intention and purpose. In the ordinary world, we're not in charge. We are defined by the world. The world is telling us what we have to value, what we have to fight for, the things that we have to pursue. And so we're driven by competition and conflict. In the special world, which is, in the hero's journey, this is when we have discovered who we are and our capacities, and now we have a purpose. That's when we really feel alive and we are driven by love. That love is really passion, and it's always connected to being active. It's always related to doing what you love. And so that makes you want to really embrace bringing something positive to the world. So the hero is the one that really sets the tone and defines a life that is going to be driven by either conflict or purpose. And that deep chasm between the life we're living and the life that we're really meant for, that is the conflict. That battle is between the self that the world is telling us to be and a true self that is trying to emerge, that is trying to win. And the mind is supposed to help us see that. The mind is considered of the air element. Think for a moment how that evokes speed, invisibility, and therefore something very difficult to control. I love the artwork in tarot decks because they're very symbolic, very meaningful. And this is a deck designed by Mila Losenko. I just wanted to give credit. And so in tarot cards, the air element is associated with the suit of swords. And the suit of swords, as you can see, is always represented by very aggressive, very negative illustrations. Well, that's because the mental realm is seen as a battleground, and swords are symbolic tools for navigating that. The mind needs sharpening. A sword can cut through confusion, it can separate truth from falsehood, but a sword is also a powerful weapon. I want to show you a clip here from Gladiator, and I want you to pay attention to swords. I want you to pay attention to what is being said and how it relates to what we're talking about.
My father spent all his time at study, at books, and learning and philosophy. He spent his twilight hours reading scrolls from the Senate. And all the while, the people were forgotten.
Have you ever embraced someone dying of plague, sire?
No. But if you interrupt me again...
So this is such a great image here with the sword, because he's threatening with words, but also has a literal sword, which is very interesting. Now, in the beginning of the clip, you saw how Commodus, this is the current Roman emperor, he's referring to his father. His father was Marcus Aurelius, who was, a symbol of wisdom and, learning, studying. So cultivating the mind. And Commodus is the example of the exact opposite. He just wants to create all of these games. He wants the conflict. He wants to feed the people bread and circus so that he becomes popular and people love him. So I want you to watch the next clip. And here in this image, we can see this is going to be a secret meeting. Right at the beginning, you're going to see how the servants are deaf and mute, so that they can speak safely. And then you're going to see a lot of references to people who are being taken from the streets who represent cultivated minds, and they're being fed to the arenas.
Having servants who are deaf and mute at least ensures I live a little longer.
They're arresting scholars now. Anyone who dares speak out. Even satirists and chroniclers.
And all to feed the arena. But what is in his mind? That's what I trouble myself with.
And what pays for it?
The people will be starving in 2 years. I hope they're enjoying the games, because soon enough they'll be dead because of them.
So that's quite a statement. Soon they'll be dead because of those games. But let's watch the next clip here. And here, what I want you to pay attention to is, we were talking about swords and the air element, and this clip speaks for itself.
As long as the people support him, we are voices without steel. We are air.
What an interesting reference, right? And by the way, it's kind of funny how in the English language, within the word sword is the word word. So you can cut someone with words and you can cut someone with a sword, right? And the mind is supposed to reveal, to tell us what it is that we're consuming. So how do you stimulate the mind? That's a huge question to ask. Are you seeking meaningful knowledge? Are you seeking truth, or just stimulation? Are you just distracted, overwhelmed even? Being overwhelmed is kind of important, especially as we get older. And if we feed the mind with just, crap all the time, that's going to have an impact. So are you overwhelmed? Are you uninterested? That's also very significant. For those who have a lot of this archetype, there's like an urge to really be interested, to read a book that we really want to read. I used to feel that a lot, especially when I was at university and I had to prepare for exams, and I was just really tired of being fed, all this data that I was not interested in. And so I really wanted to read a book that I loved. So distracted, overwhelmed, uninterested, that's all about the lower self. And when the hero is asleep, the lower self is in charge and the mind is going to become a trash bin. Remember that the hero is the one that sets the tone and defines if you're going to be driven by conflict or purpose, okay? And so when the hero wakes up, the mind can become a compass. That's the higher mind, the higher self is the one that is going to guide the way to higher fulfillment. There are two other archetypes that are directly related to the mind because they're also of the air element, and that's the archetype of relationships and the archetype of groups or tribes. And a lot of conflict shows up in these experiences. So how is the mind related to those? Well, communication is the beginning of all connections. It's the beginning of relating to others. It's the beginning of relationships. Every relationship confronts you with your own sense of identity and purpose. It confronts you with your hero archetype, if it's awake or not. And relationships show us where we stand with ourselves. They're a mirror. If we're lost, we attract chaos, instability, imbalance, and power struggles because we enter relationships without being aware of who we are, what our purpose is, without an awareness of what we want in life. And another issue is that we don't see others for who they really are. That's a big one as well. So we need to understand and define the nature of the relationship that we are really looking for. So conflict in relationships is about mismatch of identities and purpose. It's about a lack of compatibility. The right others, they're supposed to enable us to help us fulfill our primary hero purpose. And obviously, we have to do our part as well. In groups, we see a larger pattern of that. They say that we are the average of the people we spend the most time with. And this, at first when we're younger, it's about our friends, and sometimes our families are very concerned about the kind of people we are surrounded by. That's the archetype of groups, because out of the relationships we have, some form of network, community, or society is revealed, and it's going to have quite an impact on us. That's where our tribal self seeks expression. And again, if the hero is asleep, we're going to attach ourselves to tribes that drain us. If the hero is awake, we can go find circles that will elevate us. So it's about either a dissociation and downgrade or an upgrade and a brighter future. That's what this archetype is really all about. And the mind also plays a big part here, because the lower stimulation of the mind can devolve into breakdowns in connection and compatibility. And that will manifest as fractures in our social structures, whether it's families, communities, society. All those are forms of groups and tribes. And groups can become easy to manipulate. And once division enters, we lose the very thing that strengthens us, that protects us, our connection and our unity. So let's go back to La Zizanie, if only for the pleasure of pronouncing that word. Here we have Julius Caesar, another Roman emperor. Caesar is losing respect among his advisors because he hasn't achieved full conquest, full domination, right? That tiny unbreakable village is making Caesar look really, really bad. So force isn't working, obviously. And so one advisor points out that these people's strength is not so much their physical force and their magic potion, but rather their unity. And that's what Caesar needs to attack. And he finds someone who has a very handy and very particular skill, the uncanny ability to sow discord and division, La Zizanie, wherever he goes. Here he is. This is Tullius Detritus. Everyone has a funny name in these books. So Detritus is a whisperer. He never raises his voice, but everyone around him ends up shouting at each other. That's how you break people. You don't really need to attack them physically. You can just divide them. And Detritus is a master of psychological warfare. So off he goes to the village and he announces that he wants to offer a gift to the, quote, most important men in the village, end quote. Now, remember the lower self, how it stirs lower instincts of temptation, jealousy, how it triggers people because of what others have? Well, instead of giving the expensive gift to the actual chief of the village, detritus walks right past the chief and offers the gift to Asterix. And soon the village unravels. Now the chief is very angry and offended. And now the women starts gossiping and they start saying that this is so weird. What did that gift mean? What kind of relationship does Asterix have that warrants such a gift, such an expensive vase and VIP consideration? He was considered the most important man in the village. Is Asterix a traitor? Is he selling the secret recipe for the magic potion to the Romans? The villagers start fighting with each other, spreading paranoia and conspiracies. And Caesar's plan is working. It's all about divide and conquer, right? That comic book, La Zizanie, sure tells a very interesting story with a lot of conflict. Well, rule number 1 in storytelling: conflict is what drives stories. If there's no conflict, there's no interest in stories. So why are we drawn to conflict? And why are we drawn to other people's battles? Have you ever noticed what happens when drama ends? People feel bored, lost, like something is missing.
Oh, you should see the Colosseum, Spaniard. 50,000 Romans watching every movement of your sword, willing you to make that killer blow. The silence before you strike, and the noise afterwards. It rises up like a storm, as if you were the thunder god himself.
But that void isn't just emptiness. It's the hero's energy. Misplaced, misdirected, but it's hero energy. Here's the thing, we want a cause, and conflict becomes a substitute for that cause, that purpose. We're just looking for something to ignite us. We want something worth fighting for, and so we watch heroes. But remember, others are a mirror.
God, they want a butcher, they want a hero. We want them to keep coming back. So don't just hack them to pieces. Remember, you are an entertainer.
So entertain!
The crowd wants a hero. What an image, by the way. We are drawn to conflict just like the Romans are drawn to the arena. We watch spectacles, we watch sports game, even trials in my case. We talk about the players, we analyze a fight, but that fight, it's really about us.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained? Is this not why you are here?
Do you see? You see, the same crowd that was cheering for blood and enjoying the massacres is now cheering for the hero. Well, that's kind of a conflict in itself, right? In every sense of the word. Well, that's because the heroes that we see in the Colosseum, in the courtroom, in the sports field, they're not just people, they're symbols.
Then listen to me. Learn from me. I wasn't the best because I killed quickly. I was the best because the crowd loved me. win the crowd, and you'll win your freedom.
I'm reminded of a principle of dream interpretation. Every element in a dream represents an aspect of your psyche, and other people, they don't actually represent other people. It's all about you. This is something that I think comes from Carl Jung, and I've applied that principle to real life, not just dreams. That's kind of how I got into my archetype system, by the way, but that's another story for another day. What matters here is that life is always telling us something. The conflict that we're drawn to, that's a conflict that we have inside. And the heroes that we watch, that's the hero in us. It's a freedom that we seek to do what we really want to do, what we are called to do. Freedom is very important for the hero because we're supposed to become who we are really meant to be, as opposed to the person that everyone is trying to shape you into. That's the person you are fighting. Years ago, when my life got destroyed, I started to have huge dreams. I kept hearing a phone ring in those dreams. And it hit me just recently, like 2 or 3 years ago. There were many other signs, but that phone ringing was quite literally the hero's call. The call of the hero, that's a voice inside you saying, there's something more. I want to feel alive again. I want to be free. So ask yourself, are you entertained or are you distracted? If you're feeling stuck, angry, frustrated, despondent, like you're with the wrong people, or obsessed with things that don't actually relate to your life, whatever it is, I want to remind you of this. Nothing is wasted. Every experience you've had, every failure, every detour, it's not lost because it's energy, and energy can be reclaimed. Just like in physics, nothing is lost, everything is transformed. So if you're in conflict right now, pay attention because that energy is trying to stir something. It's trying to wake you up. So answer the call, take back your energy, and start living your own life. Because if you're not in charge of your own life, of yourself, someone else is.